President Donald Trump, known for his unconventional choices, made another headline-grabbing decision. He appointed Elon Musk, the billionaire innovator from Silicon Valley, to a new, powerful post. Musk was tasked with leading the freshly minted Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. The very name, reminiscent of a popular internet meme, hinted at a playful yet serious approach. The goal was ambitious, to overhaul the federal government. Trump believed Musk, a man famous for disrupting industries like automotive and aerospace, could bring a similar revolutionary spirit to the sprawling bureaucracy of Washington, D.C., a place often seen as resistant to change. Musk, with his reputation for aggressive problem-solving and a disdain for red tape, seemed an almost natural fit for such a monumental undertaking. His companies, SpaceX and Tesla, were built on rapid iteration and challenging established norms. The idea was to apply this Silicon Valley ethos directly to the machinery of government. He was not a typical Washington insider. He was an engineer, a builder, someone who saw complex systems as puzzles to be optimized, or if necessary, completely redesigned. His mandate was clear: find inefficiencies, cut wasteful spending, and make the government operate more like a lean, agile tech company rather than a lumbering giant. The mission of DOGE was to fundamentally alter how the government functioned. It aimed to identify and eliminate bureaucratic redundancies that had accumulated over decades. This meant scrutinizing every department, every program, and every process. The promise was a smaller, more responsive, and significantly less expensive government. Musk and his hand-picked team of young engineers and analysts were expected to deliver on this promise swiftly. They were to act as internal auditors with unprecedented power, tasked with a top-to-bottom review of federal operations, looking for areas to trim, consolidate, or entirely remove from the government's portfolio. The announcement of DOGE and Musk's leadership sent ripples of both excitement and apprehension through the Capitol. Supporters, particularly those frustrated with perceived government bloat, hailed it as a bold move. They envisioned a future where taxpayer money was used more judiciously. Critics, however, were wary. They worried about the potential for an unelected official to wield immense power, making drastic changes without the usual checks and balances. The stage was set for a period of intense scrutiny and transformative, if controversial, action within the federal government, a true test of whether a disruptor could truly disrupt Washington. Once installed, Elon Musk and his DOGE team moved with astonishing speed, a pace rarely seen in the methodical world of federal governance. Within their first 100 days, the impact was already being felt across numerous agencies. They didn't just propose changes, they implemented them with a decisiveness that stunned many longtime Washington observers. Operating with a clear directive from the president, Musk's approach was less about gradual reform and more about immediate, impactful restructuring. The team, largely composed of individuals from outside the traditional government sphere, brought a fresh, if sometimes abrasive perspective to age-old problems, challenging long-held assumptions about how things should be done. One of the most significant and immediate actions was a dramatic reduction in the federal workforce. DOGE aimed to bring staffing levels down to figures not seen since the 1960s. This was achieved through a combination of measures. Over 112,000 federal workers reportedly opted into a deferred resignation program, perhaps seeing the writing on the wall. More directly, approximately 121,000 workers across various agencies were dismissed from their positions. This resulted in nearly 250,000 federal employees leaving or being slated to leave their jobs, a seismic shift in government employment that caused considerable upheaval. Beyond personnel, DOGE targeted entire federal agencies it deemed redundant or inefficient. According to reports, at least 11 federal agencies were either completely shut down or significantly hollowed out, meaning their functions were drastically reduced or transferred elsewhere. This restructuring was part of Musk's broader strategy to consolidate government operations and eliminate what he saw as overlapping responsibilities. The closures were often met with protests from employees and those who relied on the services provided by these agencies, sparking debates about the value versus the cost of these governmental bodies and their programs across the nation. Furthermore, DOGE took a sharp scalpel to government spending on external services and initiatives. The department oversaw the termination of over 8,500 federal contracts with private companies and other organizations. Additionally, more than 10,000 federal grants which support a vast array of research, community projects, and state-level programs were canceled. These actions were intended to curb spending and reevaluate the necessity of such expenditures. The impact was felt not only within the government but also by the many businesses and non-profit organizations that depended on these financial streams, leading to widespread concern and calls for review. The Department of Government Efficiency, under Elon Musk's leadership, proudly announced significant financial achievements. DOGE reported that its aggressive measures had resulted in approximately $160 billion in savings for the American taxpayer. This figure was presented as a testament to their success in rooting out waste and streamlining operations. While this was a substantial sum, it fell considerably short of the initial, more ambitious projections that had hinted at potential savings closer to $2 trillion. Nevertheless, the $160 billion figure was championed by supporters as clear evidence that Musk's disruptive approach was yielding tangible financial benefits for the country. However, the narrative of fiscal triumph became more complicated when viewed against the backdrop of overall government spending. Despite the claimed savings from DOGE's cuts, total federal government expenditure actually increased during this period. Data analyzed by the nonpartisan Penn-Wharton budget model, including insights from Professor Kent Smetters, revealed a 6.3% rise in government spending compared to the same timeframe in the previous year. This amounted to an additional $156 billion being spent. Even when adjusted for inflation, the increase was still a hefty $81.2 billion, painting a more nuanced picture of DOGE's financial impact. Public and political reaction to DOGE's initiatives was sharply divided, reflecting the contentious nature of its mission. Supporters lauded Musk's efforts, praising the downsizing of government and the bold attempts to cut through bureaucratic inertia. They saw DOGE as a necessary corrective force, finally tackling the issue of wasteful spending that many felt had gone unchecked for too long. For them, the job cuts and agency closures were painful but essential steps towards a more efficient and accountable government. They believed these measures would lead to long-term fiscal health, even if initial overall spending figures were higher due to other factors. Conversely, detractors voiced significant concerns. Many worried about the real-world consequences of such rapid and deep cuts, particularly the potential negative impact on essential public services and the citizens who relied on them. The significant power wielded by Musk, an unelected official making sweeping changes, also became a major point of contention. Critics questioned the transparency and accountability of DOGE's operations. Polling data from the period indicated a growing public apprehension regarding DOGE's activities, and Musk's personal favorability ratings reportedly declined as the ramifications of his department's actions became more widely understood and debated. Elon Musk's aggressive methods and the rapid pace of change implemented by DOGE inevitably led to significant friction within the established structures of Washington. The capital's entrenched bureaucracy, with its complex rules, long-standing practices, and powerful interest groups, proved to be a formidable opponent. Musk's desire for swift, decisive action often clashed with the deliberative and sometimes slow-moving nature of government. This created an environment ripe for conflict, as his team pushed for reforms that threatened the status quo and the power bases of many influential figures within the system, leading to considerable pushback. Key officials and even some cabinet members reportedly resisted Musk's initiatives, leading to internal battles and political missteps that hampered DOGE's momentum. Figures such as Scott Bessent and Senator Marco Rubio were noted in media reports as being part of the complex dynamics surrounding Musk's efforts, sometimes aligning and other times clashing with his agenda. The Silicon Valley approach of move fast and break things did not always translate well to the political landscape of Washington, where consensus building and navigating intricate relationships are often paramount. The resistance was not just procedural, it was deeply political, reflecting fundamental disagreements about the role and size of government. The public's unease with DOGE's sweeping changes also contributed to the growing controversy. While some citizens cheered the cost-cutting measures, many others grew increasingly worried about the disruption to services and the perceived lack of oversight for such a powerful, centrally controlled department. The job losses in the federal sector created anxiety, and the closure of agencies raised questions about the continuation of vital programs. Musk's personal image, initially that of a maverick innovator, began to suffer as he became associated with unpopular decisions, and the perception of an autocratic style within DOGE, further fueling the debate. Ultimately, Elon Musk's tenure as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency was remarkably brief. The combination of fierce internal resistance, mounting political challenges, and growing public concern made his position increasingly untenable. His departure was as controversial as his appointment and his actions in office. While DOGE was disbanded or significantly reconfigured after he left, its short, tumultuous existence left a lasting mark on the conversation about government efficiency and the ability of an outsider to enact radical change in Washington, sparking debates that continued long after he was gone.